At some point in our lives, we switch from the save, save, save mantra to the time when we spend our life savings. So do you live it up and live like a millionaire, or do you become more frugal? It's actually a tougher transition than you may think. SafeHarbor Retirement Group President Cory Sickles here with some great advice for us. Good to see you, Cory.
Good to be here, Robin.
All right, so this starts with something called a distribution rate, as you call it. What is that?
Really what we're talking about is how much or what, how much money or what percentage do you have to take out of your assets in order to make your monthly budget, right?
Okay.
So, when you do retire, the paycheck stops. So now you're at a point where you gotta, you have to add up Social Security, pension, whatever your income is. Then you have to compare that to your budget. And then more than likely, there's a little bit of a gap in there. So what we're really talking about is what percentage or how much money do you have to take out in order to fill that gap so you can have the lifestyle you want in retirement.
Now, when you talk about taking money out, a lot of times we hear RMD, right? Required minimum distribution, another term. What is that in relation to then this distribution rate? Is that the same, or? So
when we start talking about requirement distributions, that is when you reach a certain age, like 73 today, you have to take out a certain percentage out of your IRA accounts.
Okay.
Or 401ks or 403bs or whatever that is. That's not necessarily what you need for your distribution rate as well. No, if you don't need a whole lot of income, then you will be required to take your requireds out. But really what we're talking about is maybe you retire at 65. How much money do you need to take in order, potentially till you're 73 as well?
Okay. And so then how important is it, would you say, to know your assets and know maybe if you can consolidate them or how all of that operates when you get to that point in your life?
So I think it's very important to know where all your money is.
Sure.
Right? And the more that you can consolidate, it's going to be easier for you. And if you're working with an advisor that's helping you, plan your income and how much money you got to take out, if they're overseeing that and know where all that is, they have a better understanding of it too. I mean, you might have, we've seen it, especially today, you might have 5, 6, 7 jobs. That's 5, 6, 7 401ks that you actually might have, or you might have brokerage accounts or just accounts that you have, or multiple checking accounts.
Yeah.
So it becomes it can become more complicated and more even confusing if you don't know where all your money is.
Right. So once you figure out where all your money is, a big part that's also confusing is taxes.
Yes.
Cory, how does that figure into this plan, and what should people know about dealing with taxes?
The odd part is, or the funny part is when someone comes in and sits down with me the first time, when we start talking about what kind of income you make or what kind of income you need or how much do you make, any of those type of questions,
right,
everyone always tells me their net amount. They never tell me what their gross is, right?
Right.
So when we start talking about net amount, it's how much do you need to pay your bill. So, if you're taking money out of an IRA, say it's $1,000, and you're in a 20% tax bracket, you're only getting $800, right?
Right.
So,
okay.
so what we really try to do is figure out what do you truly need in order to cover your monthly budget. We'll figure out how much you have to take out, but odds are, if you have a $100,000 or a $500,000 or $1 million IRA, you really don't have that $1 million. Right? Because you have to pay Uncle Sam and the IRS part of that when you start taking those distributions.
When you start taking them, unless you have planned even in advance, and you often talk about there are ways to lessen that tax burden.
Exactly.
There are ways to figure around that. So when should people look into those options, Cory, and sit down and talk with someone about that?
Well, really, the sooner the better. But really what you want to start thinking about is if you're 5 years away from retirement, it's a good time to start working with an advisor so they can start building the plan.
Right.
Can you, the big question is can you retire? Because when we start putting together the income plan 5 years out, we're going to say, hey, yeah, you can retire, because you don't want to be in a situation with inflation and, something else that happens in your 80s. Now you don't have any, you run out of money. That's the worst nightmare that someone in retirement can have.
And so if you don't know, or as they say, we don't know what we don't know, right? So sitting down with somebody, and you're talking about all these things that so many people aren't familiar with, it is always probably a good idea to flesh out your plan with somebody who knows the ins and outs, right?
That's exactly right. I think the easiest part is to save.
Yeah.
The hardest part is to actually turn that savings into an income stream that's going to last your lifetime. And really, when you do come in and meet with us, we'll put together that financial plan. All of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. But I think it's just good to be able to say, am I on the right track?
Right.
Can I retire when I want? And you might not we might say you can retire at 65, but you like what you do, and maybe it's 67.
Right.
So, but until you kind of go through that process, I don't think you're truly going to know whether you can retire.
Right, you're not going to have that peace of mind. You're not going to be ready for it. So I want to point people to SafeHarborOH.com. Complimentary meeting, as Cory said, they have 2 convenient locations for you, so you can go there and book a meeting to get things started. Thank you, Cory.
Thanks, Robin.